Math brown, rugged, dashing, and dripping with determination, wiped the sweat from his brow as he trekked across the alien planet Tineria. The wind howled, ruffling his dark hair and throwing it into his piercing blue eyes. His futuristic black suit, reinforced with sleek metal plates, shimmered in the harsh light of the alien sun. Math's every step was purposeful, cutting through the jagged rocks and deep crevices with ease. His heart raced, not from the physical strain, but from the magnetic pull of the planet's ancient mysteries. As he moved further, the terrain seemed to pulse with history, whispering secrets from eons past. And then there was a glint of metal, unmistakably out of place. Intrigued, Math approached the source, a massive boulder oddly smooth in the midst of its rocky surroundings. Without hesitation, he shoved it aside, his muscles rippling beneath his suit's form-fitting exterior. Behind it, a hidden entrance to a cave yawned like the mouth of a forgotten world. Math's pulse quickened. He activated his suit's light module, a beam slicing through the cave's darkness. The walls, unnaturally smooth, seemed to hum with the residue of an ancient civilization, long gone. He moved deeper into the cave, the faint glow at its far end pulling him closer, like a moth to a flame. His heart thumped in his chest, anticipation gnawing at him. What had he uncovered? At the end of the tunnel, a metallic structure caught his eye. It looked like a sarcophagus, adorned with alien symbols glowing with an ethereal blue light. Matt's hand hovered over the surface, and as his fingers brushed against the cold metal, something strange happened. The symbols seemed to respond, pulsating with energy, almost alive. A sudden hiss broke the stillness, and a strange hum filled the air. Reflexively, Matt's hand shot to his plasma blaster, his finger tightening on the trigger, ready for whatever came next. The sarcophagus's lid slid open with a hiss, releasing a thick mist that obscured his vision. Matt stepped back, heart hammering in his chest. And then he saw her. Inside the sarcophagus lay the most stunning creature Matt had ever seen. A humanoid alien woman, her violet skin shimmering in the dim light. Her long platinum hair cascaded like liquid starlight, framing her delicate features. She wore a sleek, form-fitting bodysuit, adorned with silvery metallic details that glinted in the light. She was beautiful, too beautiful, and Matt's breath caught in his throat. Her eyes fluttered open, revealing mesmerizing golden irises. They locked with his, and for a moment, time itself seemed to pause. He had awakened her. The woman's gaze was filled with something, a flicker of recognition, longing. Her voice was soft but commanding, laced with confusion. "Who are you? Where am I?" Math cleared his throat, the rush of emotions making his usual confidence falter. "I'm Math Brown. I'm from Earth. You're on Tineria. I found you here, in this cave." Her eyes widened as understanding dawned. "Tineria," she repeated almost to herself. "How long have I been asleep?" "I'm not sure," Math said, his curiosity growing by the second. "Can you tell me who you are?" The woman hesitated for a moment, as though gathering pieces of a fragmented memory. "I am Ania. I was a member of the Tinan race. We were once a thriving civilization, but a great calamity befell our world. I was placed in stasis to preserve the future of our species. But now, I fear I am the last of my kind." Math's heart ached for her. The loneliness, the isolation that radiated from her was palpable. Without thinking, he reached out, offering his hand. As their fingers brushed, a sudden electric shock of connection surged through them, a spark that lit the air between them with undeniable intensity. Anya stepped out of the sarcophagus, her movements fluid, graceful, almost otherworldly. She brushed against Math as she stood, her delicate skin shimmering beneath his touch. He tried to hold it together, but the proximity to this beautiful, alien woman was a lot to handle. Anya caught his gaze and smiled, a mischievous glint dancing in her golden eyes. Well, explorer. What are you staring at?" Math's pulse quickened, and he scrambled for composure. We should probably focus on figuring out what to do next." "Oh," Anya purred, taking a step closer, her body nearly brushing his. And what did you have in mind, exactly? Math's mind short-circuited for a second. I thought maybe we should start by finding out what happened to your people. Anya's expression sobered instantly, a flicker of sadness in her golden eyes. You're right. I need to know the truth. Math nodded, grateful for the shift in focus. We'll find out, Anya. I promise. Before he could speak another word, a distant rumble shook the cave. The ground trembled beneath their feet as rocks and debris fell around them, narrowly missing both of them. The cave groaned and shuddered, threatening to collapse. We need to get out of here now, Math barked, grabbing Anya and pulling her close, instinctively shielding her with his body as the cave seemed to come alive with danger. They sprinted for the exit, rocks crumbling around them. Math's heart pounded, not just from the adrenaline, but from the connection building between him and Anya. This wasn't just a rescue. This was the beginning of something bigger, a new chapter, a shared destiny. As they finally burst out of the cave into the bright light of Tineria's alien sun, Anya stretched her arms above her head, the warm golden rays illuminating her violet skin, making her glow like a goddess. Math couldn't help but stare. Anya turned her head, her eyes locking with his, and a playful smirk tugged at her lips. Like what you see, explorer? Math's mind whirled with confusion, desire, and the weight of his promise. We should focus on our next steps. Anya stepped closer, her body almost touching his. And what exactly do you have in mind? Math's breath caught. We find the answers. About your people. About everything. Anya's eyes softened, and she nodded. Together, they began their journey across Tineria's alien landscape, hand in hand, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, and whatever secrets their intertwined fates would reveal. Their journey had just begun, and the universe had never seemed more unpredictable. Math and Anya walked side by side, the alien sun casting a warm, golden hue over the rocky terrain of Tineria. The vast landscape stretched endlessly before them, jagged mountains towering in the distance and strange, bioluminescent plants dotting the ground like forgotten stars. The planet felt ancient, its surface scarred by a past that neither of them fully understood. Anya moved with an effortless grace, her platinum hair flowing behind her like a silken veil. Math couldn't help but notice how she seemed to belong here, despite the hundreds of thousands of years that had passed since her people had vanished. Her violet skin shimmered in the sunlight, almost otherworldly, and her gaze seemed to see more than just the horizon. It was as though she could sense something in the air, a memory, a pulse, a whisper from the past. Math kept pace, his mind racing. There was so much to unravel. Anya was the last of her kind, the last Tinan, but there had to be more to her story. And then there was the small matter of the undeniable pull between them, something he couldn't ignore, no matter how hard he tried. The two didn't speak for a while, lost in the silence of the planet's eerie beauty. But the quiet was soon broken by a low rumble beneath their feet. Math's instincts flared, and he immediately reached for his blaster, fingers tightening around the weapon as he scanned their surroundings. What was that? Anya asked, her voice laced with curiosity, yet the hint of wariness beneath it didn't escape Math's notice. Something's not right, Math muttered, his eyes flicking to the jagged ridges that lined the horizon. Stay close. The ground beneath them trembled again, more violently this time. It wasn't just the wind. Something was moving. Math's grip on his blaster tightened as he shifted into a defensive stance. Get behind me, he ordered, eyes darting around, alert for any movement. Anya raised an eyebrow, but didn't argue. She stepped closer, her violet skin almost glowing in the dimming light. You're protective, she observed, the faintest smile playing on her lips. I thought humans were supposed to be weak. Math chuckled darkly, even as his eyes remained sharp. I've got more tricks up my sleeve than you think. Before Anya could reply, a massive shadow loomed overhead. Math's eyes shot up just in time to see something huge soar across the sky. A massive creature, its wings beating with a deafening roar. It was an impossible thing, its size enough to block out the light of the alien sun as it flew over them. The creature's scales glistened like obsidian, and its beady red eyes locked onto them, fixating with unnatural intelligence. "What the hell is that?" Math hissed, reaching for a small grenade strapped to his belt. The creature circled, coming back around for a second pass. "It's a drak, a native predator," Ania said calmly, almost as if she were discussing a harmless bird. "We used to hunt them for sport." Math stared at her, his jaw nearly hitting the floor. "You hunted those things? They're not as dangerous as they look." But she trailed off, narrowing her eyes as the drak veered back toward them. "That one's different." Before Math could react, the beast let out a blood-curdling screech and dove toward them, its massive claws extended, sharp as obsidian blades. "Move!" Math shouted, grabbing Anya by the wrist and yanking her out of the way just as the drak slammed into the ground where they had been standing. The force of its impact sent rocks flying in all directions. Anya, far quicker than Math expected, slid into a crouch, her silver boots barely scraping against the rocky terrain. She stood tall, facing the creature head-on, her hands raised in a defensive posture. "Anya, no!" Math shouted, rushing to her side, but it was too late. With a flick of her wrist, a pulse of violet energy erupted from Anya's fingers, striking the drak's massive chest. The creature screeched again, recoiling as its scales rippled with the impact. But it wasn't enough to stop the beast. It charged again, more furious than before, bloodlust in its eyes. Math dove to the side, hurling the grenade at the creature. The explosion rocked the landscape, sending a shockwave that knocked Math flat on his back. He blinked, dazed, his vision spinning. The drak was gone, a crumpled heap of twisted scales and smoke mathoing from its body. But Anya remained standing, her hair whipping around her face, eyes glowing faintly as if she had been the one to unleash the blast. She turned to Math, her gaze fierce, yet somehow calm. "You didn't think I was helpless, did you?" Anya asked with a smirk. Math sat up, wiping blood from his lip where he had bitten it from the shock of the explosion. He was half terrified, half impressed, but there was no time to process it. "You could have warned me." "That's no fun," she teased, her voice light, though her expression remained serious. "We need to keep moving." Math nodded, shaking his head in disbelief. "Right? Moving." As they walked forward, Math couldn't help but ask, "How did you know what the drak was?" "You said you hunted them." Anya's expression shifted, just slightly. "Yes, but it's been thousands of years. The Tinan had their technology, but it's not all functional anymore. I remember some things, but most of it is lost to me." They continued through the rocky terrain, the air thick with tension. But with every step, Math grew more aware of the deep, unspoken connection between them. Every glance from Anya seemed to pierce straight through him, making his heart race faster than any chase or dangerous encounter ever had. He forced himself to focus. There were bigger mysteries here. The history of Anya's people, the technology buried beneath the surface of Tineria, and whatever secret the planet held that had forced her into stasis. "We need to find shelter before dark," Math said, his voice grim. "I don't like how this planet feels right now." Anya didn't reply, but Math could see the flicker of understanding in her eyes. The danger wasn't over. Not by a long shot. And as night began to fall over Tineria, the eerie glow of the planet's twin moons lit their path. Whatever came next, Math knew one thing for sure. His journey with Anya was only beginning. And it was going to change everything. The night on Tineria felt like the planet itself was holding its breath. The twin moons hovered high in the sky, casting an otherworldly glow that seemed to shimmer off the jagged rocks, giving the alien landscape a surreal, almost dreamlike quality. The wind had picked up, howling through the narrow passes between towering cliffs as Math and Anya made their way toward a distant outcrop of rock. They had to find shelter, not only because the planet's creatures were unpredictable, but because Math could feel the weight of something more sinister lurking beneath the surface. Something he couldn't quite place, but knew instinctively would make itself known soon enough. The presence of danger hung in the air like a thick fog. As they approached the outcrop, Anya's eyes scanned the horizon, her movements fluid, graceful, and unnervingly precise. Math couldn't help but admire her, not just her beauty, but her calmness in the face of everything. A creature had just tried to kill them, and she was already thinking ahead. Math's boots crunched on the gravel as he caught up, adjusting his exploration suit. He glanced over at her. "How are you holding up?" Ania gave him a small, knowing smile, her platinum hair catching the light of the moons. "I've been asleep for 10,000 years, Math. A couple of close calls with giant predators doesn't faze me." Math chuckled nervously, though there was a tightness in his chest. He wasn't used to being in the position of having to look out for someone, especially not someone who could probably handle herself in a way he couldn't even begin to understand. The shelter they sought turned out to be a cave, another natural formation, but this one seemed different. Its entrance was a narrow slit between two boulders, almost invisible unless you were looking for it. As they ducked inside, the temperature dropped noticeably. Math activated his suit's thermal sensors, scanning the cave's interior. It appeared empty, but something about the space made his instincts flare again. It didn't feel right. Ania stopped just inside the entrance, her gaze flickering across the walls. "This place, it's familiar," she muttered, her voice soft, almost hesitant. "I think I've been here before." Math raised an eyebrow. "What do you mean? You were asleep for thousands of years." Ania didn't answer immediately. Instead, she began moving deeper into the cave, her eyes tracing the wall as if drawn to something. Math followed her, his blaster at the ready, but all he could see were the strange, glowing markings on the walls. Alien symbols that seemed to shift and shimmer with a life of their own. "Something is here, Math," she said finally, her voice echoing off the walls. "I can feel it." Math stayed close. "What exactly do you mean? You're starting to freak me out a little here." Ania didn't seem to notice his nervousness. She was fully absorbed in the markings now, her fingers brushing along the wall as if she were decoding a message hidden in plain sight. Then, with a soft hiss, the air around them shimmered, and the cave's walls shifted. Math's heart skipped a beat as part of the rock in front of them slowly opened, revealing a dark passage beyond. "What the?" Math started, but Ania was already moving toward the opening. "Stay behind me," she said, her voice carrying a strange mixture of reverence and fear. "I think I know what this is." Math hesitated for a moment before following, trying to keep his head in the game. The cave was ancient, but the technology it hid felt like it was far beyond anything Earth had ever known. As they moved through the passage, the air grew colder, and a faint humming sound reverberated through the stone. Math's suit was picking up strange energy readings, pulsing intermittently like a heartbeat. His gut twisted with the growing sense that they were about to uncover something that should have stayed buried. Finally, they emerged into a massive chamber. The space was enormous, with a vaulted ceiling that stretched out far above them, hidden in darkness. Strange metallic structures lined the walls, twisted and bent in ways that defied understanding. In the center of the room stood a large pedestal, covered in dust and cobwebs. But Math's attention wasn't on the pedestal. It was on the figure that hovered just above it, a second sarcophagus. But this one was different. The sleek metallic surface was cracked, as though it had been tampered with. And from within, a faint glow emanated, pulsing in rhythm with the humming sound that filled the chamber. Ania stepped forward, her eyes wide with something like recognition and dread. This was meant for me." Math raised an eyebrow, stepping closer. "You were supposed to be in there?" He glanced at Ania, then back at the sarcophagus, his curiosity piqued. "No," Ania said slowly, her voice tinged with uncertainty. "I was meant to be in the other one. But that one," she pointed at the new sarcophagus, "it wasn't built for me. It was for someone else. Someone important." Math watched her, his mind racing. He couldn't make heads or tails of what she was saying, but the way she spoke, like she understood the weight of it, made the situation feel even more dangerous. "What happened to the person inside?" Math asked, his voice low. "I'm not sure," Ania admitted, "but I think they're still alive, or something like it." Before Math could respond, the ground shook again, this time more violently. He staggered, grabbing hold of the wall to steady himself. Something was moving beneath them, something large, something angry. We need to move. Now, Math said, his voice tight with urgency. We can't stay here. Ania shook her head. No, I need to see what's inside. It's the only way to understand everything. Math could feel the tension in the air thickening, a sense of impending danger gnawing at him. But he knew, deep down, that they had come this far. He wasn't about to leave without answers. As Ania reached for the cracked sarcophagus, a sudden shriek echoed through the chamber, filling the space with an unbearable screech. Math's heart pounded in his chest as he turned toward the source of the sound. From the shadows at the far end of the chamber, a new figure emerged. A creature, something, its form a grotesque blend of humanoid and machine, twisted and wrong. Its eyes glowed red, and its movements were jerky, unnatural. And it was headed straight for them. Stay close, Math commanded, his blaster raised. But it was clear now. There was no escaping this. The truth was in the sarcophagus, and it was about to come for them. The creature's shriek echoed through the chamber again, louder this time, vibrating the walls and sending a jolt of terror through Math's body. His blaster was already raised, his finger tight on the trigger, but as the creature's red glowing eyes locked onto him, his instinct told him this was no ordinary enemy. The figure was a twisted fusion of organic and mechanical parts. Its limbs were long and jagged, with sharp, metallic protrusions at every joint. Its face, or what passed for a face, was an amalgamation of wires, glowing sockets, and flesh stretched thin over bone. It was grotesque, and yet something in its movements was eerily deliberate. It wasn't just a mindless beast. This was something intelligent. "Get back!" Math shouted, pulling Ania behind him as he took a cautious step forward, his plasma blaster humming to life. He knew it wouldn't be enough to stop this thing, but it was all he had. But before he could fire, Ania moved past him, her hand outstretched toward the creature. The golden light in her eyes flickered with something ancient, something powerful. The air around her shimmered like it was warping under the weight of her presence. "No!" Math yelled, trying to grab her, but she was already too far gone, her gaze fixed on the creature as if it were an old friend. "Ania, what are you doing?" Math's voice wavered, a mix of fear and confusion. The creature hesitated, its screeching lessened to a low growl. It was as if it were waiting for something, or someone. "I know this being," Ania said softly, her voice reverberating with a strange, melodic resonance. "It is not my enemy." She turned to Math, her eyes full of sorrow. "It is one of my people, or what remains of them." Math blinked, his confusion deepening. "One of your people? That thing? Are you serious?" The creature's eyes flickered, its unnatural movements slowing as it seemed to analyze Ania. It tilted its head, as if sensing her words, acknowledging her in some way. The air was thick with tension, but there was also something else, something unspoken, something ancient that passed between them. "Ania, please, what's going on here?" Math's voice broke through her trance. Anya's eyes softened, the golden hue dulling slightly. This is what happened to my people. To the Tinan race." Her voice trembled now, the weight of the revelation hitting her. The calamity that destroyed us wasn't just a disaster. It was a weapon, something beyond our understanding. She stepped forward slowly, her hand still held out toward the creature. "The Tinan people tried to evolve, to advance in ways we shouldn't have. We merged our bodies with technology, seeking immortality, perfection." She paused, her gaze flicking toward the sarcophagus. "But that thing," she gestured to the creature now standing still before them, "was the result of our mistake. It's a hybrid, an attempt to bring back those who were lost." Math stared at her, trying to process the staggering truth. "So, this thing is part of your race? A failed experiment?" Ania nodded solemnly, a sadness in her eyes. "Yes, it's a tragic one, but one of our own. A lost soul, transformed by the calamity we unleashed." The creature growled, its mechanical limbs clicking and grinding as it took a step toward Ania. Math raised his weapon, but Ania stopped him with a glance. "Wait," she whispered. For a moment, everything went still. The creature's growls softened, its red eyes dimming to a quiet glow. It was as if it were remembering something deep within its fractured mind. Math could hardly believe his eyes as the creature stopped, its form slowly relaxing. Ania reached the creature, her hand hovering inches from its twisted face. Her voice was low, almost a chant. "Sorries, it is time. The war is over." The creature froze completely, its eyes meeting hers with an intensity that made Math's heart skip a beat. He could almost sense the conflict within the thing, torn between its primal instincts and the last remnants of its former self. Anya's face softened with sorrow. "I'm sorry. I'm so sorry," she whispered. "We didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know what we'd become." Math lowered his weapon slowly, his mind spinning with disbelief. The creature, it wasn't a mindless monster. It was a remnant of Anya's race, a being who had somehow survived their attempt at godlike power. After a long moment of silence, the creature, Saris, jerked back, its form beginning to ripple and shift, as if unraveling from the chaos it had become. Its mechanical limbs began to retract, parts of its body coming undone, revealing a figure beneath. A humanoid form, frail, but undeniably alive. Anya stepped back, her breath caught in her throat. "Saris," she murmured, almost as if in disbelief. The creature's body finally fully shifted, revealing a pale, humanoid figure. His skin was gray, but there were faint traces of blue that shimmered under the faint light of the chamber. His eyes, once glowing red, were now a soft gold, matching Anya's. And though his body was clearly weakened, the connection between him and Ania was unmistakable. He was one of her people. Math watched, dumbfounded, as Ania knelt before him, her hand resting gently on his head. "You're free now, Saris. The nightmare is over." For a long moment, there was only the sound of the cave's quiet hum and the soft rustling of wind outside. Then Saris spoke, his voice rasping, broken. "It is over. But what of you, Ania? What of your kind?" Ania closed her eyes, her hand still resting on his head, her voice soft but resolute. "There is nothing left of my people. Only us." She looked over her shoulder at Math, her gaze steady. "Only him." Math swallowed hard, the weight of her words sinking in. He hadn't realized just how much Ania had lost until now. He had thought her isolation was about waking up in a strange world, but it was deeper than that. She was the last of her kind. Math stepped forward, his voice firm. "We'll find the answers, Ania. I promise. We'll figure out what happened to your people. And we'll make sure you don't have to face this alone anymore." Ania looked up at him, the golden hue in her eyes flickering with something new. Hope. Saris, still kneeling before her, looked up at Math as well, his expression unreadable. "You are different. Earthling. You are here for her." It wasn't a question. It was a statement. Math didn't respond immediately. He glanced at Ania, meeting her gaze. There was something in her eyes now, something softer, something that made the air between them heavy with unspoken things. "I'm here for both of you," he finally said, his voice steady. A moment passed, and the distant rumble of Tineria's shifting earth reminded them that they were not alone. Their journey was far from over, and the answers, like the dangers lurking in the shadows, were still out there, waiting to be uncovered. The air outside the cave was thick with the scent of ozone and an unfamiliar, floral fragrance carried on the wind. The alien sun had begun to sink lower in the sky, casting long shadows over the desolate landscape of Tineria. Math, Ania, and Saris stood at the entrance of the cave, looking out across the jagged horizon. The day was drawing to an end, and though the sky was painted in hues of purple and gold, there was an unsettling quietness to the world around them. The kind of silence that comes before a storm. Math adjusted his armored suit, the weight of the plasma blaster on his hip reassuring, though he knew it would do little against the kind of danger they might face here. He glanced over at Ania, who stood with Saris at her side. Her eyes were distant, haunted by the weight of her past, but there was also a flicker of something new, a sense of purpose. "Where do we go from here?" Math asked, his voice low, breaking the stillness between them. Ania turned toward him, her eyes flicking to Saris. then back to math. She took a deep breath, her platinum blonde hair catching the last rays of the sun, giving her an ethereal glow. There's a place, a hidden city. It was once the heart of Tineria. It's not far from here. Math raised an eyebrow. A hidden city? Ania nodded, a faint hint of a smile on her lips. Yes, it's protected by ancient technology. Only those who know the way can access it. It holds the answers to everything. How my people fell, why the calamity happened, and maybe even how to reverse it. Math's curiosity surged. Reverse it? You think there's a way to bring your people back? She hesitated for a moment, her golden eyes flickering with sadness. I don't know, but if there's a chance, I have to try. Sari stepped forward, his once metallic body now mostly organic, but still faintly shimmering with the last remnants of his transformation. You are both fools to think such a thing is possible, he said, his voice rough, but not without a touch of sadness. The calamity was a punishment, a price for what we sought to achieve. Anya's eyes softened. I know, Sari's, but sometimes the price of the past doesn't have to be paid forever. Math looked between them, trying to make sense of the weight of what Ania was saying. If anyone could understand the stakes, it was her. She had seen her civilization collapse in the pursuit of immortality, and now it was up to her to find a way to ensure its legacy didn't end in utter oblivion. We'll find this city, Math said with determination, clapping his hand to his chest. And whatever it takes, we'll get the answers. Sari's gave him a measured look. You will not survive the journey. The guardians of the city will not allow anyone to enter, especially not a foreigner. Math didn't flinch. I didn't come this far to turn back now. Ania looked at Math, her gaze lingering longer than before, a flicker of something unspoken passing between them. We will need to move quickly. The longer we stay here, the more dangerous this place becomes. Sari's gave a grunt, his figure trembling for a moment, as if still battling the remnants of the creature he once was. The city lies to the east, across the plains of ash. But beware of the storms. They do not forgive. Without another word, they began their journey, heading into the unknown, the silence of Tineria broken only by the sound of their footsteps on the cracked, dry earth. Hours later, the sun had dipped beneath the horizon, and the three of them trekked through the alien landscape, their path lit only by the faint glow from Anya's skin. The wind howled, a constant reminder of the planet's hostile nature. The ground beneath them was a twisted maze of dried plains, sharp rock formations, and deep ravines that seemed to go on forever. Math wiped his brow, feeling the weight of his armor pressing down on him. Despite the technology of his suit, the air was stifling, and the environment felt almost alive, watching them, waiting for a moment of weakness. He stole a glance at Ania. Her face was set, determined, but there was an underlying exhaustion in her movements. It was clear this mission meant everything to her. She was carrying the hopes of a civilization on her shoulders. Math couldn't help but admire her resolve. Sari's, now walking slightly ahead, was a more somber presence. His once proud frame had been reduced to something between man and machine, a tragic remnant of what the Tinan people had become. He didn't speak much, only leading the way with quiet, methodical steps. They approached the plains of ash just as the night deepened, the vast emptiness stretching before them, a place that seemed to have no end. The landscape here was stark, with little life and even less light, the air thick with the remnants of ancient destruction. Stay close, Sari's warned, his voice low and gravelly. The storms come without warning, and when they do, they destroy everything. Suddenly, a low rumble echoed across the horizon, and the air around them began to tremble. Math's heart skipped a beat. Storms coming. Before he could react, a thick cloud of ash mathowed from the distance, engulfing them in an instant. The wind picked up violently, howling in their ears as the sky darkened. Visibility dropped to near zero. Ania reached out, her fingers brushing Math's arm. Stay close, she shouted over the roar of the storm. Trust me? Without thinking, Math grabbed her hand, pulling her closer as they sought shelter behind a large rock formation. Sari's was already there, crouching low, his eyes scanning the horizon. As the storm raged around them, Matt couldn't help but feel the intensity of the moment. The weight of the journey ahead, the uncertainty, and the undeniable pull he felt toward Ania. He couldn't ignore it anymore. He realized, with a deep ache in his chest, that he wasn't just trying to uncover the mysteries of this alien world anymore. He was trying to help Ania find herself again, to give her hope, something she hadn't had in a long time. "Ania," Math said, pulling her close as the storm howled louder. "Whatever happens, we're in this together." Her gaze softened, and for the briefest moment, the storm seemed to fade. "Together," she whispered, squeezing his hand. The storm didn't last long. As quickly as it had come, it passed, leaving only the dark remnants of its rage behind. When the skies finally cleared, Math saw the outline of something in the distance. A silhouette of towering spires rising from the ashes, faintly glowing beneath the starry sky. The hidden city was real, but as they moved forward toward their destination, Math couldn't shake the feeling that the answers they were searching for might come at a terrible cost.